He opened the wrong door, and entered someone else's life. Verdict stories. He opened the wrong door. That's all it was supposed to be. A mistake. One wrong apartment in a hallway full of identical doors. 1 second of embarrassment. One quick apology. Then he would close the door, find the right unit, finish his delivery route, and forget it ever happened. But behind that wrong door was a life that had been carefully hidden. A man sitting alone in the dark. A framed photograph that should not have existed. A name Ethan had not heard since he was 12 years old. And a truth that would change everything he thought he knew about his father, his childhood, and the family who told him he had been abandoned. My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how one wrong door led me into someone else's life, and helped me uncover the reason my father disappeared from mine. Welcome back to Calm Verdict Stories. If you enjoy emotional stories about family secrets, hidden truths, betrayal, karma, and life-changing discoveries, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because today's story is for anyone who has ever been told to let go of the past, only to discover that the past was never finished with them. I was 29 years old when this happened. At the time, I worked for a maintenance company in Chicago. We handled repairs for apartment buildings, offices, restaurants, and property management firms. It wasn't glamorous work. Most of my days were spent fixing leaks, replacing locks, checking electrical panels, dealing with broken heaters, and answering emergency calls from people who were angry because something in their home had stopped working. But I liked it. I liked solving problems. I liked arriving somewhere chaotic and leaving it better than I found it. And unlike my childhood, work made sense. If a pipe was broken, you fixed it. If a door wouldn't close, you adjusted the hinge. If a light was out, you replaced the bulb. There was always a reason something didn't work. There was always a way to make it work again. Family was different. Family was the one thing I had never been able to fix. My father left when I was 12. That was the story I had been told. My mother said he packed a bag, walked out, and never looked back. She told me he was selfish. She told me he chose another life. She told me he didn't call because he didn't care. For years, I believed her. What else was I supposed to believe? I remembered my father as a quiet man who worked long hours at a printing company. He wasn't perfect. He was tired a lot. He forgot things sometimes. But he used to make pancakes on Sundays. He taught me how to ride a bike. He would leave little notes in my lunchbox that said things like, "You've got this, champ." Then one day, he was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. No birthday cards. No calls. Nothing. My mother remarried 2 years later. My stepfather, Raymond, was the opposite of my dad. He was loud, confident, successful, and always had an opinion about how people should live. He owned a small insurance agency and liked reminding everyone how hard he had worked for everything. Raymond wasn't cruel in the obvious way. He never hit me. He never screamed at me for no reason. But he made it clear that I was not his responsibility. When I was 16, I asked if he could help me pay for driving lessons. He said, "Your real father should have thought about that before disappearing." When I got accepted into trade school, he said, "At least you picked something useful. College would have been a waste on someone without direction." When I moved out at 20, he didn't help me carry a single box. My mother always told me not to take it personally. "Raymond has a hard exterior," she would say. "He means well." But I learned that he means well is often what people say when they want you to accept behavior that hurts. By the time I was in my late 20s, I had stopped asking about my father. Every time I mentioned him, my mother became quiet. Every time I asked whether he had ever tried to contact me, she said no. And every time I pushed, Raymond would say, "Why dig up old pain?" The man made his choice. So I let it go. Or at least, I pretended to. Then came the wrong door. It was a Wednesday afternoon in February. Chicago was freezing. Snow had turned into gray slush along the sidewalks, and my company had sent me to repair a broken radiator in a high-rise apartment building downtown. The building was expensive. The lobby had marble floors, a doorman, soft lighting, and the kind of quiet that made you feel like you should lower your voice. I checked in at the front desk. The work order said apartment 1806. The concierge pointed me toward the elevators. When I reached the 18th floor, the hallway was almost identical to every other luxury hallway I had ever seen. Muted carpet. Gold numbers on dark doors. Perfectly framed art. No signs that real people actually lived there. I found apartment 1806. Or at least, I thought I did. The key fob from the property manager opened the door. I stepped inside with my tool bag. Maintenance, I called out. No answer. The apartment was dark except for a lamp in the far corner. I took 2 steps inside. Then I heard a man's voice. You're late. I froze. A man was sitting in an armchair near the window. He was older, maybe in his late 50s. Thin. Pale. Wearing a gray sweater and looking out at the snowy city below. For a second, I assumed he was the tenant. I'm sorry, I said. I'm here for the radiator. He turned toward me. And his face changed. Not confusion. Shock. His eyes widened. Then he stood up slowly. Ethan? My name sounded strange in his voice. Like he had said it 1,000 times in his head but never expected to say it out loud. I looked at him. I'm sorry. He took a step toward me. Then he stopped. His hands were shaking. Your name is Ethan? Yes. He looked like he was about to say something else. Then he looked down at my work badge. His face went completely white. I should have left. I should have apologized, told him I had the wrong apartment, and walked out. But something on the wall stopped me. There was a framed photograph near the window. A little boy sitting on a man's shoulders at a county fair. The boy had a red baseball cap. The man was younger, smiling, and holding cotton candy. I knew that photo. Not because I had seen it before. Because I was the little boy. I walked toward it slowly. My hands felt numb. The older man behind me said, "Where did you get that badge?" I didn't answer. I stared at the photograph. Then I turned around. Who are you? The man sat back down. He looked exhausted. Then he said the words that changed my life. My name is Daniel Hart. That was my father's name. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I had spent 17 years imagining what it would feel like to see him again. I had imagined anger. I had imagined questions. I had imagined telling him exactly what he had taken from me. But I hadn't imagined this. I hadn't imagined finding him by accident in a dark apartment after opening the wrong door. I said, "My father is dead." He closed his eyes. "No," he said quietly. "I'm not." I felt something inside me break. I put my tool bag down. Then I said, "You left." He looked at me. "I was told I was not allowed to contact you." I laughed. Not because anything was funny. "By who?" He looked toward the doorway. Then he said, "Your mother." And Raymond. I didn't believe him. I couldn't. My mother had spent years telling me my father abandoned me. She had shown me old bank statements. She had told me he stopped paying support. She had said he never asked about me. My father stood up and walked slowly toward a desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of envelopes tied together with a faded blue ribbon. Every envelope had my name on it. Some were addressed to my childhood home. Some were addressed to my school. Some were addressed to my mother's office. All returned. All unopened. My hands shook as I picked one up. The handwriting was his. Happy 13th birthday, Ethan. First day of high school. Congratulations on trade school. Please tell him I never stopped loving him. I looked at him. Why didn't you come? His eyes filled with tears. Because I was told you didn't want to see me. I stepped back. He explained that after the divorce, my mother had accused him of being unstable and irresponsible. She told him she wanted full custody. He fought at first, but he was struggling financially after losing his job at the printing company. Then Raymond entered the picture. Raymond had money, lawyers, and connections. According to my father, Raymond had offered him a deal through a lawyer. He could sign an agreement to stay away from me in exchange for my mother dropping certain claims and allowing him to avoid a court battle he could not afford. My father said he refused at first. Then he received a message that shook him. My mother told him I was scared of him. That I had said I didn't want him to visit. That I was happier without him. I thought I was doing the least harmful thing, he said. I thought if you didn't want me, forcing myself into your life would only hurt you more. I was furious. Not at him. Not yet. At the years. At every birthday. At every holiday. At every time I stared at the phone waiting for a father who had apparently been trying to reach me. I asked him why he had never tried harder. He looked down. Because I was ashamed. Then I got sick. I noticed the medical equipment near the wall for the first time. The medication bottles. The oxygen machine. My father had been living with a serious heart condition for years. He had moved to Chicago for treatment after his sister offered to help him. The apartment wasn't even his. It belonged to his sister, my Aunt June. She was the actual tenant of apartment 1806. I had opened the wrong door because the property manager had accidentally given me the key fob for 1808. My father had been staying there temporarily after a hospital visit. The radiator I was supposed to repair was in the apartment next door. But that small mistake had opened the door to a life I never knew existed. I wanted to leave. I wanted to call my mother and scream. I wanted to demand answers from Raymond. Instead, I sat down. For 2 hours, my father and I talked. He told me about the pancakes. He remembered the red baseball cap. He remembered how I used to hide under the dining table when thunderstorms came. He remembered the name of my first best friend. He remembered things no absent father should have remembered if he truly did not care. Before I left, he gave me the envelopes. All of them are yours, he said. You don't have to forgive me. You don't have to come back. But I need you to know that I never stopped being your dad. I walked out of that apartment feeling like I had entered someone else's life. A life where my father loved me. A life where my mother had lied. A life where everything I thought I knew about myself was suddenly uncertain. That night, I drove to my mother's house. Raymond answered the door. He looked annoyed when he saw me. Ethan? What are you doing here? I held up one of the envelopes. Did you know Dad tried to contact me? His face changed. Just slightly. But enough. My mother appeared behind him. She saw the envelope and sat down immediately. I asked again. Did you know? She started crying. Raymond said, you don't understand the situation. No, I said. I don't. Explain it. My mother told me that after the divorce, she had been afraid my father would take me away. She said he was depressed, broke, and unstable. She said Raymond helped her protect me. I asked, protect me from what? She had no answer. Raymond stepped forward. Your father couldn't provide for you. That doesn't answer my question. He wasn't reliable. Neither were you, I said. You used him being poor as an excuse to erase him. Raymond's face tightened. We did what we thought was best. I looked at my mother. You told him I didn't want to see him. She covered her face. I didn't want you to be confused. You made me believe my father abandoned me. She cried harder. Raymond tried to speak again. But I stopped him. For 17 years, I blamed someone who loved me because you were afraid of losing control. Then I left. For months after that, I didn't know what to do. I didn't suddenly become close to my father. Too much time had passed. Too much pain had been built. But I visited him. At first, once a week. Then twice. We had awkward conversations. We talked about work. We talked about movies. We talked about things that didn't matter because we didn't know how to talk about the things that did. But slowly, we learned. He came to my apartment once. He helped me fix a cabinet hinge that had been bothering me for months. We laughed because I had become a maintenance technician and still couldn't fix my own kitchen cabinet without ignoring it for half a year. He brought pancakes one Sunday morning. They were terrible. Burned on one side, undercooked on the other. But we ate them anyway. My mother called constantly during that time. At first, she apologized. Then she defended herself. Then she said I was letting my father manipulate me. That was when I set my first real boundary. I told her, you don't get to decide what relationship I have with my father anymore. She was silent. Then she said, I'm still your mother. Yes, I said. And I'm still your son. That's why this hurts so much. Raymond never apologized. He told relatives that I was being dramatic. He said I had been influenced by a man who wanted sympathy. But I had spent enough of my life worrying about what Raymond thought. I stopped answering his calls. My father's health got worse the following year. There were hospital stays, difficult days, and long nights when I sat beside him while machines beeped softly in the dark. But there were good days too. Days when he told me stories about his own father. Days when he showed me old photos. Days when he told me he was proud of the life I had built. One afternoon, he looked at me and said, I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I told him something I had learned from all of it. You were there when you could be. The people who kept you away should be sorry. He cried. So did I. My father passed away 18 months after I opened that wrong door. But this time, I was there. I held his hand. I knew he loved me. And he knew I had finally heard him. After the funeral, my mother came to me. She looked older than I remembered. Smaller. She said, I know I can't fix what I did. I said, no. You can't. She nodded. But I want to try. I thought about that for a long time. Then I said, trying means telling the truth. To everyone. Not just to me when it's convenient. A few months later, my mother called my Aunt June. She apologized to her. She apologized to me again. And she finally admitted to the family that my father had not abandoned me. That she had kept him away. That Raymond had helped her do it. Some relatives were shocked. Some were angry. Some said it should have stayed private. But the truth had already been private for too long. The wrong door changed my life. Not because it gave me revenge. Not because it made my mother suffer. Not because it fixed every lost year. It changed my life because it gave me the truth. And the truth gave me something I thought I would never have. My father. Even if only for a little while. Sometimes, life does not give you a perfect ending. Sometimes, it gives you a door you were never supposed to open. And behind that door is a pain you never asked for. But sometimes, behind that pain is the answer you needed to finally stop blaming yourself. I was not abandoned. I was not unwanted. I was not forgotten. I had simply been kept away from someone who loved me. Thank you for watching Calm Verdict Stories. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Have you ever discovered a family truth that changed the way you understood your entire past? Subscribe for more stories about family karma, hidden truth, betrayal, healing, boundaries, and life lessons. Until next time, stay strong, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the wrong door leads you exactly where you were meant to go.